making my game face. Ain't no stopping me, you know I'm coming in first place. Well, stop it till I get that ring. I'ma dominate all day. No matter who you bring, I will not lose.
Yeah.
I will not lose.
I will not lose.
So yeah, this episode is just going to be a little bit of a dive into some of the stuff that I'm going to be posting on social media, as well as a look ahead at Saturday's fight night. So we have a fight night in Atlantic City for the UFC. Not going to get into other promotions for this episode. Just going to keep it kind of more narrow, more focused, try to keep it shorter, as I mentioned. But look at, again, some of the content that I've been making and then some of the fights coming up for this UFC Atlantic City event. So I'll start out, as I mentioned, adding to the stage the full screen here. As you know, if you were tuned in for previous episodes or if you're following me already on social media, you've seen me kind of break down some of the stuff that I'll show you here on my Instagram channel. But yeah, going back to the beginning, again, I had this like Charles Oliveira meme here. I already broke all these things down and kind of talked about them just to run through them quickly again. When my mom says I look handsome, little smug smile. When the cops are passing by the Darty and your boy says act natural, just like what the fuck is going on? This is not natural. Looking at this picture of Craig Jones, BJJ superstar. Little breakdown here, just kind of a clip of one of the episodes here, of this show, MMA Full Throttle with Aristotle. Another clip from another episode. And again, I talk about such a wide variety of things, and whether I'm breaking down fights or breaking down fighters or breaking down just storylines, those are all the sorts of stuff that you'll be able to see in clip form on social media, but then in the long content form on Spotify and YouTube. Another clip here talking about the Hammer Mark Coleman, who is doing better and better, recovering from that tragic fire that killed his dog Hammer. The dog's name was also Hammer, R.I.P. Hammer. But Mark was able to save his elderly parents. So again, he's doing well. It does seem like he got a new dog to replace Hammer, which hopefully in some way it's a reincarnation. But anywho, next, another meme here. When life has been kicking your ass lately, but you remember to lock in. Went over that one before. Another clip here from an episode. This one was actually the original kind of UFC content that I started doing with Black Gritty and Jason on our Gritty Night streams on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. So that was the OG beginning here. The UFC is back. And then another clip from another episode 5 of MMA Full Throttle. Another meme, I like this one. Me playing it cool in kindergarten, getting ready to. I realized actually, let me go back over here. I realized I shared this last time and talked about it, but I had the MMA Full Throttle with Aristotle banner still up. So I'm gonna take that down there, Aaron. You can maybe see it better now. But yeah, as I was saying, me playing it cool in kindergarten, getting ready to pick my crush in Duck Duck Goose, and my friend who knows I like her. I think you couldn't see in the previous episode that Gilbert Burns over here in the bottom right is smiling the way he is. So again, Gilbert is representing the crush, the kindergarten crush. Peter Yan, the rival of Sean O'Malley, is representing the crush of Sean O'Malley, aka me in this scenario, or you. You can read it as in your own voice, whatever. Another little interesting meme there. This one, again, I stole this one, but I gave full credit to OOC MMA, tagged him in it. He ended up liking the post, or whoever runs that account. I had a good time tonight. You're the greatest friend a girl could ask for. Gut punch. O'Malley looking in pain right there. Guys will see this and just say, hell yeah. A little mural of Ilya Taporia and Murad Valashvili in Georgia. Again, just a dope mural for two dope fighters. I want to have fun with these. Again, just, being creative. If I take one or take an image even from anybody, I'll make sure I give credit to those images. If I take an actual meme from somebody, I'll definitely give credit as well. I'm going to try to just be clever on my own, or at least repurpose images on my own, maybe into traditional jokes. Again, the guys will see this and just say, hell yeah. I'm sure I could use that again in the future. I could have used it for this next one, but I kind of altered it slightly. I said, guys really only want one thing, and it's this. I got Poetan just with a little monkey on his shoulder, wearing a jacket. Definitely a male, a male sort of thing. Guys just being hell yes. That's, just boys being boys, whatever you want to call it. Even again, and little subtle things I like to do. We'll see how many people ever notice this shit. But Heaven on Earth, I put as the caption, or as the location. Chama as the caption. Again, I'm doing polls as well in these posts. Does Alex defend his belt against Jamal Hill at UFC 300? So you can participate in that. Will Marab become champ next, and Jordan Ilya was in the one before that. Does Cheeto win if he lands the body shot earlier? Again, I've already broken these down in a previous episode, so I won't spend too much time on it here. Episode 6, is out now as well of MMA Full Throttle with Aristotle. This is the one that I kind of break down, I guess, more of the yeah, so kind of recent. This is episode 8, so a couple episodes ago. If you haven't checked it out already, I kind of go into detail about these memes and about these posts. And then most recent, I guess, meme. I think this is the most recent meme. But I also talk about this. I talked about this guy in the last episode as well. Peyton Talbot. Man, what a fighter! He is a beast. This dude is coming up the ranks already. I mean, he's not really, but he looks like he's about to shoot up the ranks, I should say, after his great performance against another hot prospect at the excuse me, last UFC fight night. Um, Interesting guy. There's definitely a lot of stuff about Peyton Talbot coming out now. Not like bad things, but just kind of more of a look into who he is as a person. Um, and he's a little zesty, right? I don't know if I'm not even using that in any sort of way. I just think he has a I have a nose ring. I have earrings. I wouldn't describe myself as zesty, but you might see the nose ring and be like, oh, it's a little bit zesty, right? And Peyton Talbot has a septum piercing. He looks like he paints his nails sometimes. I think the way he talks is, just like kind of nonchalant. There's a certain tone to his voice, I guess, that you can maybe attach to some of his personality traits that we're noticing. Again, I'm not judging him anyway. I'm just saying that he seems like a creative guy. He seems like just really like a free spirit sort of person. And I mean, just to address it, like there's a video out there of, I don't know if it's him or it's somebody else, that was on his Twitter, like putting a vape into his ass, but it's not like in his ass, but just like smoking a vape essentially out of his butt. And it was just like, definitely a weird ass like video. Is it? But the type of thing in social media, like the internet these days, that's the type of shit that like somebody might do back in the day. Again, I'm 29. I'm not super old or super young at this point, I guess. But I do remember a time before like social media and smartphones, and before like people posting everything, and some shit. Like I would never do anything like that. But like, have I ever had a dumb friend do something dumb and just like, what the fuck? This guy's just trying to be funny, or this guy's just, it's a nonsense thing. And then you see that in a moment when you're growing up, and then it's hilarious, and you just like, you remember it forever, but you move on. And that person, like when you bring it up, might be like, ah, fuck, don't bring that up, dude. Or they might be like, yeah, whatever, just having fun. But now these things just like live forever on the internet. So it's not the type of thing where you can have like that context, or even you don't even think about things like, man, that was so many years ago, because things just seem permanent, set in time on the internet. So I don't know. I didn't expect to kind of go on a little bit of rant about that particular topic. But Peyton Talbot, just to say, it's not like it came to light that this video, and then all of a sudden Peyton Talbot's like, oh shit, my image is ruined. Like, he's not worried about it. Someone commented or replied to that, a tweet from a while ago, saying something, and it was like, what the fuck is this, or like, what are you doing? And he was just like, he replied like saying like, having fun or something. And that was after he won the fight, so he's ready to stand on business. Peyton Talbot being himself, obviously, like, he's a great fighter. So if you want to go talk some shit to him and try some shit, be my guest. I'm sure he would be ready for that. But then there was another video I think I saw. I honestly have to be careful these days too, because it's about the point now where like, who knows what the fuck is going to be real over the course of the next year or 5 years, 10 years. I can't even think that far ahead, with AI videos and stuff like that. But I don't think it was an AI video. It looked like it was him. It looked like an old kind of quality video, so it wasn't like some pristine AI looking thing, but it was him doing like some pole dancing. Again, that doesn't mean anything, right? He might be pole dancing because he feels like pole dancing and being athletic in that way, or trying new things. I mean, he described on Ariel Helwani's show, the MMA Hour, that he got into MMA because he was in a sushi restaurant and saw like highlights of Conor McGregor and was like, holy shit, like I can do that. Like I can go, fight and be good at it and have it be a sport and be a ninja and be all this stuff. So seems like he's an athletic guy that also has a creative mind that found this kind of perfect storm of those two things in mixed martial arts, and he's great at it. He's got, again, interesting personality, good looking guy, cool tattoos. I really fucked with his, I'm going to try and find it in this episode. Actually, I'll look for it as soon as I get off this post. But it's him like celebrating. Actually, I'll find it. I'll find it now. It's Peyton Talbot like celebrating his last fight. My bad if I showed this like in that previous episode where I had already been talking about him. But here's the highlights, I guess, first of all. Boom, check left there. That's how the fight ended. I did talk about this highlight. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, oh, there's more. Here's more. In that episode that I broke down the fight, I think it mostly just showed the finish. But you see here, man, the knee that happened before that. He was beating up Saman, who's apparently another super high prospect. Honestly, Saman looked good too. He was moving well on his feet. He was throwing dynamic strikes. He looked fast. I mean, Talbot just looked like he was a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, a little bit more dynamic. But yeah, I mean, this is just kind of repeating those highlights, not showing the. Oh, here it is. You kind of see him right there, like stiff, and I don't know what the fuck he's doing, in that bottom image there. All right, this will be the official celebration. Here he goes. Bzzz, bzzz, and then he kind of just does a little Yeah, so I don't know what the fuck that you would call that, but to me it's like he looks like he kind of like is getting like he's almost like making fun of the fact that he just starched this guy. Yes, Saman's not knocked out cold. He's not just he's not just stiff as a board, but that's kind of like one of those like he's like Peyton looks like he's getting like shocked by like a battery or shocked by some like electricity. Oh, his body's like stiffening up. He's making a face. It's almost like he's if someone just got knocked out. That's kind of what it looks like. But then he just does like the stiff walk, like I'm the man. I don't know. I don't think there was anything super like I don't know. He might. I think he's talked about it. I think he has already talked about the celebration. So I'm pretty sure it wasn't like some choreographed thing. But cool. If I was in the moment, he was just flowing and feeling himself, and just those are the things he did. That shit looks cool as fuck to me. I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Peyton Talbot. But I feel like I can't talk about him without addressing some of the shit that's coming out. Just because, I mean, yeah, you see here in his picture, like he's got a little, even a worm will turn. I don't know what that caption means, but just in general, that's like he's creative. He is interesting. He likes to be himself. He likes to try things. I mean, that's the vibe I get from him more than anything. Look, he's shooting a fucking gun over here in the snow, crop top over here. Like, I mean, he's got very interesting tattoos, like just a solid like black circle on the back and on his back and his sternum, abdomen area. It's kind of very interesting. But yeah, freaky fighter, freaky style, another little crop top thing over here. Again, sexuality aside, whatever. I mean, whatever his sexuality might be, I'm not questioning it either way. But either way, it would be fine, right? But he also could be any sexuality in me doing any of these things. So, I'm just here to just shout out Peyton Talbot and reference him also because I just had a meme of him that came up and I figured I was, I might as well not glaze over all these terms I'm using. I'm like, damn, everyone's gonna be pausing me in the comments of all this shit these days. You can't fucking say anything anymore without it being a pause. But anyway, Peyton Talbot, you took a picture of him again, like goofy little kid smile. He might have even been trying to do like a little kid smile in this moment, or maybe that's just how he smiles. But it kind of looks like an imitation of a little kid smile. And so I put me after I won my second grade spelling bee, like getting my hand raised and smiling. And then in the caption I put, if I remember correctly, I actually came in second place 3 separate times and never won. And that's true. It might have only been twice, but I definitely came in second at least twice in spelling bees in second grade. Did not come in first at any point in time. So yeah, but I remember, oh man, I remember one time, I think it was the first one. We tried to spell porcupine, me and this kid, like 4 or 5 times back and forth, and then eventually, and I swear we tried. We definitely were repeating each other, which is like I don't think I was a smart kid. I'm a smart guy, but it's like, man, looking back, it's like you just can't help being dumb sometimes, in life, at different stages, and you don't know what you don't know. But I'm pretty sure we like repeated the same spelling a few times, and like probably could have just process of elimination got it. But anyway, I digress heavily because this is not where I thought this episode was going. But whatever. Next clip from episode 7 out now, where I did recap the fight nights from last weekend. Rose Namajunas versus Amanda Hebos, Peyton Talbot, the bite scenario. So actually, yeah, this reminds me, I do want to briefly address the bite scenario as well. But before I get to that, I will finish running through the social media stuff. So we see here another caption: when you wake up in the middle of the night and your Russian link is streaming this moment, and it's Dustin Poirier being handed a belt with just Islam looking beat up. Kind of funny because this Islam picture, I believe, is from the first Volkanovski fight that a lot of people thought Volkanovski won. Watching it live, I did think that Islam edged, I think maybe the first 3 rounds over Volk, but the more I've thought about it, yeah, I like to evaluate fights and watch them closely in the moment because there's always going to be bias afterwards. I can rewatch it and with like a with a microscope or with a with a magnifying glass and maybe decide who I think won that again. But Volk definitely beat him up, and at the end of the fight, Volk was on top. Volk looked like he might have a chance at finishing Islam. Probably wasn't super close to finishing Islam because he could probably take the damage for longer. But he had him in mount. He was punching him. And Volk looked good. It looked fine after the fight, right? So that's another thing that just makes me feel pain. That Volkanovski took that Islam fight on such short notice. The second one got KO'd, and it kind of has changed everything. But that's the fucking fight game, baby. That's how it goes. So anyway, but yeah, this is referencing again. Dustin Poirier loving to go for jump guillotines. He's releasing merchandise now. Don't be silly, drop Gilly or some shit like that. Jump the Gilly. He's saying that there's been interviews since his last fight when he knocked out Benoit Saint-Denis where he's like, yeah man, I keep doing it. So it's a thing, right? And Islam Makhachev's even been asked about it. He's like, yeah man, I hope and Islam's got a great personality and great sense of humor too. But Islam was asked about it in an interview, and he said, he's laughing. He's like, yeah, I hope he gets it. I hope he gets somebody with a guillotine someday, but not me, right? So that's why I put to the Gilly, because and I put the location as the guillotine. So to the Gilly, right? And I said, can Dustin beat Islam as the poll? So, but just funny again because there's all this stuff about people streaming MMA versus like buying it on pay-per-view. And just the Russian link, that's a reference to like an old Khabib quote. He said, "We have Russian link, brother." It's like Khabib wasn't buying those pay-per-views. Honestly, I think Khabib said that on like a UFC broadcast too. So pretty fucking funny. But without further ado, here's some of that TikTok stuff I'm gonna be bringing to Instagram, trying to help grow the channel, trying to help grow myself as a sports talk person. Obviously, MMA. Journalist, MMA podcaster. But again, I hope that I show my personality in this content, in these episodes, in the social media posts, and just I can talk about anything, right? I like to talk. I have a lot of passions, a lot of interests. But yeah, obviously I'm rolling with the MMA stuff right now. But I hope again, this is where I'll do some fun challenges, maybe some games. There's this guy I like a lot called Rory Talks Football on Instagram and TikTok. I guess I don't know, I haven't used TikTok a lot, to be honest. So I mostly see Rory on Instagram, but he's been stuck on this one like 9 and 9 challenge, trying to get 9 players, different players to fit the like the accomplishments for like Euro, Premier League, Continent Cup, like every little category you can think of, Ballon d'Or, and I'm gonna try to figure something out like that for MMA. But yeah, for the first 2 that I posted today on Instagram and on TikTok. For Harris Style MMA I'm not sure if you can even hear the audio here, so I'll probably just talk over it. But yeah, basically this one is just me introducing the TikTok channel, introducing like the sorts of stuff I'll do to go along with these long form episodes, these fight recaps, things of that nature. This one is just me getting fighters, and I think this filter automatically starts out with Israel Adesanya, the former middleweight champion, probably the second greatest middleweight of all time, in my opinion. Has an argument for first, for sure. I would listen to anybody talk about why he's the best. I think it's Anderson Silva, but either way, that's kind of what I said in this video. I just said, all right, let me see if I can get somebody to beat Izzy. And I was like, I probably need somebody bigger. And then that's why I react the way I do right there, because I was like, oh, I got fucking Tom Aspinall. And then I was like, Tommy Aspinall. Tommy Aspinall. So anyway. Tom not only has like probably walking around 60 plus pounds on Israel Adesanya, probably 70 pounds. I think Tom is really fast striker as well, so it's not even like he would get purely outclassed in the striking. I think Izzy would be throwing a lot of leg kicks on Tom, but if Tom just weathered the storm of any punches that Izzy threw, he's so much bigger than Izzy. Tom is also a great elite grappler, elite jiu-jitsu. Very good wrestling, great wrestling, you might say. So I think Tom would destroy Izzy. No knock to Izzy. Tom destroys 99% of the people on the roster. He's the fucking heavyweight interim champ. I mean, John Jones might be the only guy that could beat Tom Aspinall. I mean, again, heavyweights have knockout power. Sergey Pavlovich in their last fight could have knocked him out, but didn't, right? So anyway, Tom Aspinall, I'm a big fan of Tom. And then I put in the caption, can Izzy beat Tom, with like a little, as the poll, with a little bit of a like worried smile, because I'm like, I could have, Izzy was the first guy, right? I was trying to find somebody to beat Izzy. So I should have said, in theory, like you would phrase it, can Tom beat Izzy? But like I said, I think it's pretty clear Tom is going to wax Izzy. So I was like, can Izzy beat Tom with a little bit, let me hear the Izzy fans, what you think. So anyway, next video. This one, this was my first shot at this. I thought I might run out of time. Ranking 10 fighters, giving some like influence as to why, like with 60 seconds of time is really hard. This one, you can see in the last one, the captions I didn't have because I couldn't, I don't know. I'm figuring it out, right? It's my first two kind of videos. Posted it. I thought it was a good video. Figured out the captions in the next video, was like, fuck it, I'm not going to repost anyway. So I'm authentic. I'm a real guy. I'm not trying to curate. Like, obviously, I want to curate the content a little bit, but I don't want to curate myself or curate just like what it is to do this or what it is to talk about this stuff. I mean, nobody needs to feel like you should be perfect. If you have the time and you have the energy and you want to like things like, as perfect as you can, that's great. But sometimes that is something that gives me paralysis and makes me not want to do anything. So instead of being too perfect or forcing myself to be perfect, here's a video without captions, right? So the next one got the captions. You can read them here. But yeah, I got Matt Hughes first. I was like, damn, Matt Hughes, 9-time welterweight defending champ, one of the best ever. Putting me at number 6 to start, it's like you have no idea who you're gonna get, right? Then I got Poirier, so I was like, okay, Poirier, like, I think he's better than Matt Hughes. I mean, he has never been an undisputed champion, but he is one of the greatest fighters ever. Interim champion, one of the best resumes ever. Can't put him above Khabib though, even though again Khabib's resume is great. It's probably not as elite as Dustin's in terms of the people he's beaten, but he's beaten a lot of the same people and he's beaten Dustin. So after that, I got Volkanovski, who like you might put under Khabib to some people, but I think Volkanovski's done more in the fight game. So honestly, I really like this list a lot so far. I got Cedric Doumbé, who's a French kickboxer, put him at 10. Shavkat hasn't won anything yet, so he might end up being one of the best one day, but I put him at 7. Then I got GSP, and I was like, yo, you just got to put GSP at 1 for sure. This is one that hurt. Anderson Silva at 5. I was like, I probably would put Anderson in the top. But again, I might put him above, Matt Hughes or Poirier. But I don't know if I'd put him ahead of Khabib, maybe ahead of Khabib. So he probably could have been in that top 3. But I think there's an argument out there that he is number 5 on this list. I think there's an argument that Poirier is ahead of him. I think it's a weak argument. I wouldn't make that argument, but I think again, ultimately this list ends up being not so bad because I also forgot to mention I got Jorge Masvidal, who I put at 9 when I still had a few slots left because I was like just feeling like that's just what I was feeling. There might be someone that could sneak in there. And it worked out pretty good, as I said. So ends up being like GSP, Volkanovski, Khabib, Poirier, Anderson Silva at number 5, Matt Hughes at number 6, Shavkat Rakhmonov at number 7. Gilbert Burns is who I got for number 8. I was kind of stalling to wait till I could remember who it was, but Gilbert Burns at 8 behind Shavkat, not terrible. Honestly, I think all time you might put him above Shavkat just because of what he's done in the fight game. But again, I think Shavkat, undefeated fighter, same weight class. People think that he's better than Gilbert now. Not bad. Yeah, Jorge at 9 and Cedric at 10. So pretty good list, honestly. But yeah, I'll probably do these. At least a couple of these videos. Again, I want to aim to do a couple of these videos a day, whether it's the 10 person ranking, blind ranking, whether it's the pick a fighter to beat this fighter. I might do like I'm going to pick 2 guys that are on my team and you have 2 guys on your team and we'll see who beats who. Again, it could be ladies as well. I think there's women, female fighters that will be in these filters too. So anyway, without further ado, or without spending any more time on this, I should say, that is the gist of the content you can expect. Again, follow me at Hairstyle MMA on TikTok and on Instagram. We'll see. John Jones, man, he wasn't there right away, right? But as I said, I kind of want to address the situation here that I alluded to when I got to this post, where we're talking about the bite that happened over last weekend. So let me see if I can go to. I think MMA fighting might be the best bet here. I think they had some quotes from this guy. Maybe it wasn't MMA fighting. Some other interesting stuff too. Again, so a quick fight reactions you might see on my Instagram as well. So we see Robert Whitaker here versus Hamzat Chimaev. That just got announced. That's a banger of a headliner. Holy shit, UFC Saudi Arabia. They also announced a couple other fights for this that have not been totally agreed to yet. So it was like Alexander Volkov against Sergey Pavlovich. But they had already announced Alexander Volkov fighting Gelton Almeida. So I don't think this fight card is totally set yet, but Robert Whitaker's already come out and talked about it. already talked about, the matchup. So I know Rob is in on this. And Hamzat's got to be in too, because he knows that if he beats Rob, I mean, he's got a great chance at a title shot next. Bobby Knuckles, baby, one of my favorite fighters ever. And it's also interesting. Hamzat has recently, well, not recently, but previously said, when asked about Robert Whitaker, like, oh, I want to fight bad guys because Robert's a good guy, and it's like, it's one of those things where Hamzat is a psycho and a villain in many ways, but he's an honorable guy, I think, deep down. And so I think, him and Rob, it'll be a matchup of two great fighters without animosity, but I do think that Hamzat's still going to act a little bit crazy, even though Rob is always cool, calm, and collected. So that'll be a cool build up to that fight. But yeah, I want to find the quote if I can. MMA news, that might be the one. Or no, what was just coming up? MMA Uncensored. Let's see what you got for me, guys. Man, who is posting it? MMA Pack might be one. ESPN MMA. I mean, I guess, hey, while we're here, another cool thing, GSP was just recently on the Pound for Pound podcast, which is Kamaru Usman and Henry Cejudo's podcast that they started. Really great podcast because those guys are two of the best ever, and they're having some great guests on. They had Dana White on. Dana White was on, and they asked, and I guess, they didn't ask, but Dana White came out and said that Usman's undeniably the greatest welterweight of all time. But then you have GSP, so maybe like in Dana's mind, because GSP won a belt against Michael Bisping at 185, even though it was only one fight, he just like gives Kamaru the best welterweight title, and then still thinks GSP is better than Usman overall or something. I don't know. It could have been just that he's saying that because he was on Usman's podcast, but I don't think Dana usually panders to people, so whatever. Also, I'm sorry for this. Again, on Instagram captions, on the comments, you can't really hide them, so anything you might see here, I do not condone necessarily. I'm not paying attention to too much either. But GSP was on the podcast too, more recently than Dana, and he said they talked about him fighting Khabib, and he kind of broke that down. Really interesting. He said that he would have beat, if he thinks he would have beat Khabib. Again, he's a very humble guy, GSP. So he was like, maybe he could have beat me. Maybe I was wrong, but in my mind, I thought I was going to win on that night if we did fight. And he talks about how his strategy would have been to instead of like backing away from Khabib's pressure because you're so afraid of engaging with the grappling, which is what a lot of guys have done in the past. Most guys who fought Khabib fight that way. They're very hesitant. They're very the guys who don't fight that way have had the most success. So I say that while Justin Gaethje did do pretty well in that first round against Khabib and was hitting with leg kicks and things like that. As soon as he engaged, or as soon as Khabib got his hands on him, it was over immediately, right? So with McGregor, who also won a round against Khabib, and to this day, I mean, people still say it, as much as Khabib was still dominant in that fight, nobody defended Khabib's grappling like Conor. I mean, the flexibility of his limbs, his hips, his knees, his ankles, the way he kind of like fold his legs to maintain certain positions to not get fully taken down, the way he just again stalled Khabib on the ground at times, made him have to work a lot, really hard for those takedowns that you had never seen people have to make Khabib work like that before. It's one of those things, Conor did walk forward and try to pressure Khabib immediately, and Khabib was on the back foot. And again, like, it's one of those things that sometimes you have to fight your fight. And I think Conor came out after that fight. I could talk about this. I said this was going to be a quick episode. It will be. I am going on tangents right now. But yeah, I thought Conor, I agreed with what he thought about after the fight. What he said was they spent too much time preparing for what Khabib was good at. And I think they did need to spend time on that for sure. I mean, Conor wasn't known as a grappler, so they definitely needed to prepare in that way. But they didn't spend enough time on working on what Conor was good at. And if they worked harder on Conor finding the KO shot instead of just trusting that he has that skill set, he'll find it, but he'll also have to worry about the grappling. So let's focus on the grappling during training camp. If they were like, you know what, let's understand that if he gets us in that position that's best for him, it's going to be hard for us, right? But if we get him where it's best for, it's harder for him and best for us, then we might have a shot, right? So I think Conor had the right idea in his initial approach in that fight, how he came out in that fight, walking forward, trying to throw shots at Khabib coming at him right away. But he did force the takedown attempt from Khabib a little bit early, and I think Conor, again, a few tweaks here and there. I think he might have won. He could have had a chance at winning that fight, but I don't want to spend too much time on that. But the interesting thing, that GSP said was that he would have he would have been, one of the guys, probably the only guy ever to try to take Khabib down, right? And that's a really great point because I do think Khabib is such an elite chain wrestler that his movement, his strength, his ability to scramble would come into handy. And him versus GSP, I just can't even speculate. I have no idea. GSP was an elite wrestler as well. I think Khabib's top control is the greatest of all time. So it's, he has that over GSP. But guys that are great at offensive wrestling are not always great at defensive wrestling. If you get a guy on his back who's used to being on top of you, sometimes they don't know what to do. So, and they just don't have that same strength or power, or that strength and power doesn't translate because now they have to be flexible and they have to be smart and they have to be, just have to be scrappy. They have to be rolling around and figuring things out. So yeah, it doesn't always work out that way. I guess, I think those wrestlers in general, if your background is wrestling, you probably do have ways to get back up if you get taken down. But yeah, how are you going to do on your back, man? Wrestling is part of grappling, but jiu-jitsu is another part of grappling. I think GSP has the edge in jiu-jitsu. So that would have been really interesting. A fight that we wish happened, but we'll never know. Again, this is all while I'm trying to find like that post about Igor. I forget what his last name. I'm just gonna look up Igor. Was this him, man? Oh man, poor guy. Yeah, he got cut, man. This guy got cut from the UFC, and like this is his profile. Dana White Contender Series. Here's the apology here. That's not who I am. I guess that's not the full MMA Junkie. Okay, so I did see which outlet was reporting this, and I'm gonna go to them and we'll look at this quote together. So. It's not who I am. So yeah, Igor Severino issues apology for biting Andre Lima at UFC on ESPN 53. It's not who I am as a person. That's not who I am as a fighter. I just feel very regretful. It makes me very emotional and sad about it. My dream became a nightmare overnight. I'm very regretful to my opponent. I apologize to Lima, to Dana White, to the Nevada Athletic Commission, to Sean Shelby, who spoke to me after the fight, to Mick Maynard, everyone in the organization and the fans. Sorry to everyone who was watching that on TV. They didn't deserve to see that. This guy looks young. Oops, sorry, Chris Weidman there. And then he's 20 apparently. So it's like, man, and even he looks sad, like in the cage too, just like surreal, like what the fuck did I just do, sort of thing. I don't want to be defined as a 20-year-old kid who bit a guy in the cage and was banned from the sport, and that was it. Everyone that knows me knows that's not the kind of person that I am. That's not my character. That's not how it should have been. I know things look pretty bad for me right now, and I just want people to see the person that I am, to see that's not who I am as a fighter or as a person. So I kind of said this, in the last fight, or after that fight, or in the last episode, I should say. I was like, man, I don't know why he did that, man. Like I feel bad for him on some level. The other guy is like got the bite, and I don't think he got infected. Again, biting humans is like, if you're human biting a human can result in some bad infections. So you got to be careful doing that shit. It's very dangerous, unsanitary, and just just poor form, poor sportsmanship, to say the least. But he's apologetic immediately. Made a bad decision, did something dumb in a fight, like really just dumb decision. I think it was just dumb more than anything. I don't think this guy is evil or a bad person necessarily. Don't know him obviously very well. But yeah, it sucks to see, man. This guy his whole life might be over. Like he might never get signed to a promotion again. He was in the UFC, the pinnacle of the sport, a prospect that Dana White was excited to have in the UFC, and then he does that, and he's pretty much banned from the UFC for life now. Yeah, I don't think he'll ever be in the UFC again. But I do hope that this guy turns his life around, that he maybe does get a second chance and never does anything like this again. Just proves that this was a mistake, proves that he belongs. But I know his family's getting death threats, like he's just potentially lost his whole MMA career, like all this work he put in, and he's so young, 20 years old to make the UFC. I mean, that's a big deal. That's a great accomplishment. He could have had 10 to 15 years of fighting in the UFC at the peak of his sport, potentially, going for championships. I mean, I don't know how good he could have been, but that's a lot of money you're losing. That's your whole lifestyle. Even if he's a great fighter, if no everyone just knows him as this now, he might not ever get signed again. You could be a great fighter on the street making no money. So, sucks for him. I'm definitely bummed out that happened in general, like obviously. And I hope, again, if there's any, chance at redemption for this guy, I'm definitely rooting for him to turn it around. I mean, again, he shouldn't have did what he did, but rooting for him to turn it around. So anyway, without further ado, gonna get down to the fights this weekend. Don't know everyone on the prelims here, but I'll go through it quickly. So we have Angel Pacheco versus Colin Lorgren. I don't know how you pronounce that in Irish or in like whatever the Irish language is, but Irishman versus American, 27 versus 32. We see that the reach and height advantage is with Pacheco over here, who is a plus 300 underdog. So he is, 40% accuracy with the strikes, looking at 13 strikes per minute. I'm thinking this guy has not had a ton of fights in the UFC. Again, as I've talked about, those 13 strikes per minute, you're not usually landing that many strikes on the best guys. So it's probably, he's a volume striker, clearly doesn't go for any takedowns. This other guy over here, we see Lugran, sorry. 2 takedown average per fight. Not the most accurate, but, going for takedowns, going for significant strikes, a little bit more accurate, younger. Big favorite. I'm gonna lean towards that guy, but again, I would I say all that with a grain of salt if I don't know both fighters. So moving on, we see that Jacob Malkoun is fighting Andre Petroski. Andre Petroski is a Philadelphia fighter out of Delco, if you know what I'm talking about. Solid fighter. He got knocked out in his last fight by Michel Pereira. I think his gas tank is solid, but he can fight. He fights well tired, I should say, about Andre. I think that he needs to get to a point. He's very muscular, so it's hard to keep that cardio maybe as good as it could be. But he just, to me, he's got shorter reach than some guys. You see this. He has the same reach as Jacob Malkoun, who is 3 inches shorter than Andre Petroski. Petroski hits hard. He's a good wrestler. He's a good scrambler, grappler in general. He's got solid jiu-jitsu. Not the best striking, but his movement's not terrible. But yeah, I think that he just he throws bombs and he's so muscular that he gets tired and then he starts to look like lethargic and labored. But he can still maintain that and survive and then even bounce back sometimes. But I just think he needs to make sure that his cardio is there. Jacob Malkoun minus 225 favorite is interesting to me. I've seen Malkoun get knocked out. I've seen him get hurt badly. 7 takedown average per fight compared to 4.5 for Andre. More accurate for Malkoun. It's gonna be like a grappling sort of affair here. Honestly, I'm gonna lean towards Petroski. I know it's underdog, but I think he could land a knockout shot on Malkoun. I think he's stronger than Malkoun. If Malkoun can just put that cardio on him, put that pace on him with the wrestling, and then get him tired and just be on top of him and out grapple him, then that's great for Malkoun. I think he might be able to do that, but it's a toss up to me. I think the odds for Malkoun are a little bit too heavy for Malkoun. I'd play the dog if I was going either way. Melissa Gatto versus Victoria Dudakova. Gatto here is minus 155 favorite. Dudakova undefeated. Don't know a lot about these ladies here. 125, 117. So it looks like Victoria Dudakova is moving up a little bit here to 125 to fight Gatto. Gatto's the favorite, as I mentioned. She's got some takedown. Only one takedown a fight about. Not the most accurate in terms of her takedown attempts. We see better accuracy for Victoria. A little bit better accuracy in terms of striking and the takedowns. A little bit more volume over there in the striking for Gatto. Gatto's 2 years older, longer reach. Looks like a little bit bigger. I'm gonna lean towards Gatto in that sense. Looks like Dudakova. She might shock me, but I don't know enough about her. She's gonna have to prove that. So, looking forward to that fight for sure. Don't know a ton about those ladies, but shout out to them. We have a Ebo Aslan over here. Sorry, bro, out of Turkey, I think that flag is. Versus Anton Turkalj out of Ukraine, I believe. And I've seen Anton fight and get knocked out not too long ago. Doesn't really seem like the type of guy that will have a super long career in the UFC, but I do not know enough about Ebo. But at the same time, 8 strikes per minute, 72% accuracy, probably making a debut or one of his first or second fights in the UFC. I'm just gonna lean towards Ebo here. He's the favorite for a reason. Light heavyweight, yeah. Anton, I feel like he's gonna be a little bit too slow in this matchup, and the reach advantage is not really a thing. So similar size. I'm going with the Turkish man, Ebo Aslan. So next fight here on the prelims, Connor Matthews versus Dennis Bazooka. Again, don't know a ton about these guys, so I'll move through it more quickly. But we see 5 significant strikes versus 3. Little half-inch reach advantage, a little bit of age advantage over here for Connor Matthews. It's pretty much a pick'em fight. Younger guys got a slight edge in terms of the odds. 5 years younger, more experience. So yeah, looking forward to that. We'll see how it works for those guys at featherweight. Then we have Julio Arce versus Herbert Burns. Herbert Burns is Gilbert Burns' brother. Definitely nowhere near the same level of fighter as Gilbert. I've seen him get injured and hurt in fights. Not the most physically strong. Looks like Arce. And Arce I've seen, seen in other fights look a little bit better than Herbert. I think Herbert's going to go for the jiu-jitsu, right? That's his goal. The Burns brothers are both high-level jiu-jitsu guys. I think that if Arce can use his strength, avoid kind of the submission threat from Herbert, he has a good chance in this fight. Heavy favorite, so I'm going to lean towards Arce for sure. I don't think Herbert Burns, has any more runs left in him. Gilbert might, so we'll see. Now getting into some of the juicier matchups here. We have Virna Jandiroba versus Lupi Godinez. Man, Lupi is a big favorite here. That's interesting. I feel like Lupi had a really disappointing performance a couple of performances ago against Angela Hill. And then her last fight, she did better. But Lupi is somebody that was coming up the ranks kind of quickly. She's got a wrestling background. She's scrappy fighter for sure. Virna's more jiu-jitsu, but she's got some striking. She can do it all. I like Virna a lot. She's a very good fighter. Really cool personality. Really cool lady. Lupi being the big favorite. She's got the youth on her side. Virna's getting older. The youth is a big thing. I mean, we talk about it more in the men's game than the women's game because I think there are more. But I don't know. I don't know who it affects more. Zhang Weili is 35 now, 115-pound champion. I don't think it affects the women as much, I would say, as the men in terms of the age. But they're, 5-year age gap. Lupi is a firecracker. She's got a lot of energy. I think if she can avoid the submissions, that Lupi will get the job done. So I don't mind the odds, but I'm a little bit surprised by them. I will say that. So, but hey, Virna's a live dog, especially at those odds. Nate Landwehr versus Jamal Emmers. Nate the Great. This man is a hilarious, super entertaining dog of a fighter. He'll fight to the death if he had to. You know what I'm saying? He's got this like super country Alabama accent. And just is like, yeah, I'm that boy, like whatever. I don't know. He's got a really interesting personality, great on the mic. His fights are usually very entertaining. I don't think he's the highest level fighter. I think he's a very good fighter. Maybe not great, maybe not elite. Definitely not elite. Probably not great. Again, it's all relative. I think you be very good is a solid place to put him. Maybe not really good. It's all semantics at this point. But 6 significant strikes per minute. He's coming to bang. 1 takedown average. Again, this 1 sub average. I mean, Nate is there to brawl. He's there to fight. It's gonna be action packed. He's the underdog here. Jamal Emmers has the 2-inch reach advantage, 1-inch height advantage. 1 year younger, slightly more accurate in the strikes. Doesn't throw quite as much. Slightly less accurate on the takedowns, but lands more. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a great fight. I don't know. I've seen Jamal fight, but I'm gonna rock with Nate just because I'm a big fan of Nate. So we'll see what happens here. Moving on to the main card where I know a lot more about these guys on average than the prelims that I was just talking about. Chidi Njokuani, -150 favorite against Reese McKee. Reese McKee is known most famously probably for taking like a super short notice fight against Hamzat Chimaev and getting destroyed in like 30 seconds. McKee is a solid fighter. Chidi, I think is like, way more of a kickboxer, heavy style, than your average MMA fighter. Coming from a kickboxing background, kickboxers will, have those types of styles. But if he can avoid, it's not like he's one of those guys that you put him on his back and on the ground, he can't get back up. He's not just like completely, novice or oblivious to what to do on the ground. But definitely going to be a striking battle here. I think McKee will be the one more likely to mix it up, even though you can see both of these guys don't really go for takedowns. So yeah, in that sense, going to be on the feet most likely. Chidi's got a little bit of, his nickname Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, right? He's coming to bang. So he's about to, throw some bombs. I've seen him RoboCop. He fought RoboCop. I'm forgetting RoboCop's real name right now, but he was beating RoboCop. Gave RoboCop a fucking cut. Probably the worst cut I've ever seen, only in terms of the forehead. Like you just seen the meat and maybe the bone and stuff like that of RoboCop's of his forehead, and he just like survived that cut, not getting made worse, and then was able to kind of TKO Chitty. So Njokuani, I'm definitely picking him in this fight. Again, he's the favorite here. Slightly longer reach. He's young, he's older, but he's got a lot of kickboxing experience that he's going to be bringing into this fight. So yeah, I'm going with Chitty, and I think he can get the finish against Reese McKee. Moving on to the next fight, We have excuse me, Bill Algeo versus Kyle Nelson. Algeo is the heavy favorite here, minus 250 to plus 205. Excuse me. Kyle Nelson, I've seen him get finished by pressure fighters. I've seen him wilt under that pressure. He's definitely a slower paced fighter, and Algeo is definitely a pressure fighter. So I think, we see six strikes per minute, 60% accuracy for Algeo. He's going for some takedowns, some subs. Same thing for Kyle. Not quite as many strikes landed, not as accurate. Not as accurate with his takedowns either. I think Kyle's gotten better since I've watched him in his UFC career. Um, but I do believe that if he cannot slow down Algeo, which I don't think he will, he definitely can hurt Algeo. He definitely can do some things. He's in the, it'll be a competitive fight, but he's giving up a little bit of reach. He's definitely going to be giving up, again, just that style of, that pace and the cardio that Algeo is going to be implementing. Nelson's not really known for that as much. I think he's in better shape than he used to be, but I think the pace of Algeo is going to eventually just get the job done, whether it's by, making Nelson wilt under that pressure and that pace, or it's Algeo just kind of using that volume and that ring octagon control, I should say, to win the fight. So I'm going to go with Algeo here at featherweight. Another local guy. I don't know if he's from Philly or Jersey, but he's a local guy. Next fight, we have Cedric Dumas versus Nursultan Ruzbov. I'll try to get these guys, the other names right after watching them this weekend. Man, 6'5", middleweight versus 6'2", 30 versus 28. But the 6'2" guy over here, and Cedric, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name, has the longer reach by 3 inches. Takedown average 11.69. Holy shit for Nursultan. 35-8-2 in his career. Man, so experienced against a not very experienced guy. So many takedowns. Again, I think I might have seen Nursultan fight before, maybe once. And I've seen Cedric Dumas never. So I don't know, man. I'm scared to say, yeah, definitely Nursultan. But when you see those stats, 11.69 takedowns with 100% accuracy, 66% accuracy in the strikes, landing almost 5 a minute versus 2 a minute, similar accuracy, 50% takedown average, only getting 0.77. Man, those stats really favor Nursultan over here. So I'm gonna have to lean towards that, but I'll circle back after the fights, and do another episode, and we'll see if I was completely wrong and if I have a lesson to teach everybody about. Don't go off of the stats if you don't know. So anyway, last few fights here. I'll spend a little bit more time on this one. So Chris Weidman versus Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva, knockout power, decent grappling skills. Not really a wrestler. This will be more of a striking matchup if Chris Weidman keeps it that way. I think he has the ability to out-wrestle and out-jiu-jitsu Bruno Silva. Chris Weidman, former middleweight champ. He's a heavy underdog here. I'm going to roll with Weidman, though, because honestly, at the end of the day, Weidman is coming off, he had a fight against Brad Tavares, I think it was Brad Tavares, and he lost. But it was his first fight in 3 years or 2 or 3 years since he had one of the most horrific leg breaks in MMA history during a fight and just snapped his leg in half. So it's he was coming off of a lot, right? And at that time, he was kind of saying, man, I'm feeling like I can make another run. And Chris Weidman is one of those guys that, there's one of those moments in history where if he had done something a little bit different, zigged instead of zagged, we could have a whole different, outlook on MMA, right? He lost to Luke Rockhold. He's the guy who beat Anderson Silva, ended Anderson Silva's winning streak, knocked out Anderson Silva. Also checked a kick that broke Anderson Silva's leg, which is crazy that it happened to Chris all those years later. But Chris was winning that fight, so before that happened. So he probably was going to win again. And he's a wrestler, and he had good striking, which is, Anderson's kryptonite was the wrestling. So, or not kryptonite, but that was his weakness. And Chris could also strike. Then Chris defends his title, I think, 1 or 2 more times. Fights Luke Rockhold. Very competitive, close fight. Chris is probably maybe slightly winning that fight. Then throws a spinning wheel kick that just gets intercepted, or he gets his back taken essentially. He basically gets mounted by Rockhold, who's a really good top pressure grappler and was just doing damage to Chris. That fight completely changed after he threw that wheel kick. Ended up losing that. Had some other really good fights that he looked really good in that ends up getting knocked out by brutal flying knees or just big punches by big fighters in the middleweight. And again, those things could have been zigzag scenarios as well where, who knows what would have happened. But Chris looked like he was getting on a little streak again. Like he might, come back into the fold, have a chance at fighting Izzy if with one or two more wins. And Weidman's a big guy, 6'2", strong. He's 39 now, which is very, getting old, especially for he's not a heavyweight, right? But he said it in his press conference recently. He's like, if you take it skill for skill, striking, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, he might be the best fighter in the world, still. And I don't know if that's true because of his age, but I definitely agree that that's who Chris Weidman is in general. Like he is the guy that on paper, in his prime, he might be the best middleweight of all time. I mean, he again, great striker, or very good to great striker. Maybe not Israel Adesanya level, but competitive. He could be competitive in striking with Izzy. Great wrestling, probably the best wrestling in the middleweight division. And definitely in terms of MMA wrestling, would have loved to see if he could implement that against Izzy. And his jiu-jitsu is great. He submits guys all the time. So, and if you talk about the stories you hear about him in the gym, like he's whooping everyone's ass for his whole career in the gym. So this guy said it. He's like, I don't know. I'm very self-aware. Like this could be my last fight. We'll see how I feel. We'll see how it goes. But in the gym, I felt great this whole training camp, and my coaches feel the same way as I do. Like I look great. I feel great. I mentally feel great. And skill for skill, I still got it. If all things work out, he's kind of just alluding to that. There's a potential chance that if he does well and he looks good, he feels good, he'll just keep this going. He'll see if he can be the best in the world again. I'm leaning towards like, I just have this feeling that I don't know, Bruno Silva is like gonna knock him out and that's it. But again, just knowing who Chris Weidman is on paper and in person, but definitely on paper, I feel like he is maybe one of the best fighters ever. Definitely one of the best fighters ever. And still has that body and the skill set and the mind that if he hasn't lost too much at this age and he can implement his game plan the way he wants to. In his last fight, he was getting his legs fucking kicked to death. And this was coming off of the worst leg break ever. And he still walked through it and finished the fight. Guys are almost watching the fight like, man, this looks bad. Please stop the fight. It was almost one of those things you're watching like a guy that should retire and he keeps fighting. You're like, oh, please stop fighting. There were moments in the fight that felt like that, but then there were moments in the fight that was like, damn, he's kind of all right. Like he looks all right. He looks pretty good. Like maybe he's still got it. He's competing. He's throwing punches. He's fighting well-ish, against a good fighter after what he's been through. Like maybe there's more to it. So I'm excited to see what Chris has left in the tank. I like him as a live underdog here. But yeah, this might be that like nail in the coffin where I'm gonna not talk about Chris in this way anymore. But I'll always talk about his potential and what he was in this way. But in terms of what he has left, this might be the end of it, or it might be like, yo, see what I told you? He still fucking got it. Anyway, Chris Weidman, big fan of Chris. Last couple fights here, and then I'll wrap up the episode. But Vicente Luque versus Joaquin Buckley. Luque was supposed to fight Sean Brady, I believe, recently, and that there's a bunch of fights that Luque was supposed to have recently that kind of fell through. Buckley, coming down from 185. You've seen this picture. Super jacked, only an inch shorter than Luque. I think that Buckley is definitely found his weight class at welterweight. 5'10" is just it's tough to be 5'10" or even 5'11" at 185 if you're not just an absolute house or monster of a person. I mean, Robert Whittaker is 6 feet and he's at middleweight, and Palacos is 6'1", but they're both like big, stocky, strong middleweights. And Joaquin Buckley again was a big puffy. He's got really good genetics in terms of his muscle aesthetic. Like his pecs are huge and very full. It looks like he could be like a bodybuilder or a muscle man. He's got very long arms too. 76-inch reach. Only a half inch more than Luque, but he's an inch shorter. So yeah, I think it's one of those things that Buckley, excuse me, the reason I almost was going to say he's a live dog, but I look at the odds here and it's kind of almost a pick'em fight. I mean, he's a slight dog, -105 to -115 for Luque. Luque is more technically sound. He lands more strikes. I think that Buckley probably has a slight speed advantage here. And in terms of the wrestling, I'd probably lean towards maybe Buckley in terms of pure takedowns, but in terms of the grappling, I got to go with Luque as well. So, yeah, man. I mean, Luque's got a chin on him too. I think Buckley's gonna land some big shots. It's a great matchup here. But I am very curious to see what Buckley can continue to do at welterweight because this might be his division. Luque, I've seen it before where guys seem like they're on a high rise, fast track to a title shot or the title. And then one or two things happen here or there, and they kind of just become this perpetual, just really good fighter forever, right? That's who we know him as. So Luque, to me, is in danger of being on that scenario where now he's just going to be one of those really good fighters that fights other really good fighters. but there's probably not going to be another title run or any title run in his career. So I think Luque is going to need to try to grapple, try to get some jiu-jitsu going. Again, he's a brawler. He's a very good striker too, but I just think Buckley's most dangerous on the feet. He's a strong guy. He'll throw big punches. Yeah, good fight. I'm leaning Buckley a little bit, which is kind of crazy to say, but I'm leaning Joaquin Buckley a little bit. New Mansa is his nickname. And then finally for our main event headliner, Aaron Blanchfield versus Manon Fior. Sorry, excuse me. Fior's got the 3-inch height advantage. He's older by 10 years, which is crazy. I mean, Aaron Blanchfield, 24, super young. Blanchfield's got the slight 1-inch reach advantage. Fior has pretty short arms, to be honest, but she's a really good grappler, and she's a really good striker, and she's a really strong woman. So I think that maybe the reach is one of the reasons why I'm not sure if she should go up to 135. And she's still really competitive, and honestly, I'm talking like she, is on the way out. Winner of this fight is going to be #1 contender in this division. I mean, Alexa Grasso still has to rematch Valentina Shevchenko. They're both hosting the Ultimate Fighter right now. I thought Shevchenko won the second fight. It was super close though. And then we all know Shevchenko was winning pretty easily or pretty convincingly the first fight before, again, she threw a wheel kick, got caught very similar to Weidman, and then Grasso just got a choke in like right away off of that, got her back. So yeah, very excited for that. The winner of that fight hopefully will fight the winner of this fight. I'm leaning towards Blanchfield. She's the favorite for a reason. I mean, she's only got one loss ever to Tracy Cortez. She's been super dominant in her fights. Even more dominant beating Tyler Santos recently than Shevchenko was. It was only, I think it was a 5-round fight. But even if it wasn't, more dominant for Erin Blanchfield. She's looked dominant against Jessica Andrade. Yeah, she's just really, really dominant. Still really young. Still getting bigger and stronger for her body. I mean, she's 24 years old. She's not fully matured in terms of like that mom strength or dad strength, whatever you want to call it. Just grown woman strength. She'll continue to get that, but she's still really strong right now. Fior though she's live here. I mean, it's close odds for a reason. This is #1 contender fight for a reason. Fior beat Rose Namajunas in their last fight. Kind of based on that, I think Blanchfield's a little bit bigger than Namajunas. Not as good of a striker, but I think she's more willing to engage with the striking maybe with Fior because she's just like this is her natural weight class and she's younger and she just has no fear. And I think that she's going to be very, very game to grapple with Fior. So great matchup. I'm going to lean towards Blanchfield. I think this might be her division for years to come. But Fior I think if she loses, she's got a quick path to a title shot if she moves up to 135 because Raquel Pennington is the champ right now at 135. Not a lot of contenders up there. So both women could get title shots in their next fight, win or lose. We'll see. I mean, not lose for Blanchfield, but win or lose for Manon and then win for Erin Blanchfield. So anyway, but yeah, that's that. Definitely still a long episode, but I just kind of was getting into it with MMA, social media stuff on Instagram, the storylines that I was like, you know what, I can't look at this and not talk to you guys about it. So anyway, appreciate you all for tuning in. That was MMA Full Throttle with Aristotle, episode 8. Follow Black Gritty on YouTube and Spotify. Follow Aristotle MMA on Instagram and TikTok. And make sure that you tune into the live streams on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. We skipped this week, but we'll be back next week talking about Philly sports, national sports headlines, NBA, boxing, probably some movies too. Again, Roadhouse just came out. We're going to be watching that. And then also Striking Distance. That's the goal. Roadhouse probably more of a priority. Anyway, peace and love. Appreciate you all. Catch you on the next episode. I'll see you next time.